Hey everyone, welcome to Son of Sandslash Plays Randoms, the only channel that can actually inflict the sleep status on its viewers. Now, speaking of boring people to death, Quagsire is a total enigma in competitive Pokemon. It's somehow both viable in every tier, yet not good enough to be banned from any of them. Its lackluster stats are made up for by its great defensive typing, reliable recovery, and phenomenal ability in Unaware. Without a proper counter, this aloof amphibian will wear your patience thin. Anyway, let's get started. So, he's got Gengar, I've got Scrafty, that's probably an advantage for me. I use Knockoff, he sends in Bayward, which is about as good of a counter to Knockoff as you can get in this generation. Expecting a close combat, I send in Amoonguss, who handles it well. And I'm just going to go ahead and use Spore, hoping that he doesn't have someone who's immune to it. He sends in Noivern, I hit the Spore, which is a very good thing here. But I don't really like this matchup, so I'm going to send in a better one in Arctozolt, with him being asleep. And he for some reason expects me to use Bolt Beak, but I use Icicle Crash instead, which is just enough to two-shot Jolteon. Now I get a little bit of bad luck here and miss the second Icicle Crash, but I'm able to hit the third, and although Arctozolt is kind of useless with 31% HP, I do at least take out Jolteon. I keep in Arctozolt expecting a Double Edge, because I don't really have a great switch-in for it, but now I send in Amoonguss again, and I use Sludge Bomb, get a nice chunk of damage to Noivern. And this time I send out Quagsire, who's got Ice Beam, and I go ahead and use Ice Beam. He switches into Lopunny, expecting it, and thinking he's going to trick a Toxic Orb onto me, and I really don't want to be poisoned. I send in Amoonguss, he uses Facade instead. Luckily, it's not quite enough to two-shot me. Either way, I decide that I'm not a huge fan of this matchup, so I send out Scrafty. He sends out Noivern, so still not a fan of the matchup, and back out comes Quagsire. So this time I predict a switch and use Scald instead of Ice Beam, hoping to get a burn. I don't. Here I expect to be able to just stall out Bayware. Without a Life Orb, he doesn't really have enough to effectively two-shot me. And he can't keep using Close Combat and Double Edge without making himself vulnerable. And so I use Scald, I get a burn, luckily enough, and I try to take advantage of that by recovering. He's running out of options. He sends out Gengar to try and lower my special defense with a Shadow Ball. Doesn't work the first time. I go ahead and use Earthquake, trigger his Sash, and he's going to go ahead and stay in. He's kind of desperate at this point. He does it again, does not get the special defense lower. I use Recover to make sure that I'm at a good HP and not able to be one-shotted. I switch out to Scrafty, and he gets a really lucky sequence of events here. He crits his Shadow Ball, lowers my special defense, and hits a Focus Blast, and so Scrafty's done despite the type advantage. I send out Dugtrio, only realizing afterwards that I can't trap him because he's a ghost. Now, expecting the Noivern switch, I go ahead and use Stone Edge, but unfortunately I miss. Since Dugtrio's outsped, I go ahead and switch, and I end up with this matchup here, Umbreon Bayware. Umbreon does outspeed, Bayware's almost done, so I just go ahead and hit him with that. Now kommo-o I expect to set up here. I don't really have an amazing switch, so I decide to just poison him, knowing that I have Quagsire to stall him out. He's going to go ahead and Dynamax. Maybe not the best choice. I figure that he's going to do something like that, so I go ahead and protect with Umbreon just to stall him out. There's no way Umbreon can withstand an attack from him. I get a little lucky and get a second Protect. And the third time, I just really don't even try. It's almost a 0% chance to get 3 Protects in a row. I just let him take me out. And at this point, he's at least at a low HP. And so I send out Quagsire, and because of Unaware, those stat boosts essentially mean nothing. I assume he's not going to have enough to take me out. He doesn't. So I use Recover. And I think at this point he's just accepted his fate. Uses Clanging Scales, gets a lucky crit, but it's still not enough. And I just Recover again. And kommo-o is now out of the picture. And so back in comes Gengar, still trying to lower my special defense. I go ahead and use Recover just to really try and stall him out, but I don't press my luck too much. Since I'm at pretty high health, just go ahead and Scald, take him out. He gets a special defense lower here, so I'm a little more vulnerable at this point. I don't like this matchup because my special defense has been lowered, so I go ahead and send out Dugtrio really just as fodder. He uses Hurricane and hits. I just use Sucker Punch to get some damage. He roosts, and at this point, I've just kind of accepted the fact that Dugtrio is going to be done for. Unfortunately, he misses a couple Hurricanes, and this takes longer than it probably should have. I'm not really worried about him setting up because Noivern doesn't have any setup moves like Nasty Plot. Finally, he hits me with a Hurricane, and I get that Sucker Punch damage. And I send back in Quagsire. And just in case he critted or something, I wanted to make absolute sure he wasn't going to take me out with a Draco Meteor, so I Dynamax. I use Max Hailstorm, down goes Noivern. So at this point I just have a poisoned Lopunny to deal with, and as a stall Pokemon, that is a pretty good situation to be in. He uses Facade, doesn't take me out. I use Max Quake to get as much damage as possible, and at this point I just use Protect to stall him out further. Between Hail and Toxic damage, he's really getting it from all sides, and I don't even need to send out the Mushroom. Lopunny is done for. Thanks for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you so please, and I'll catch you next time.